Well, I don't want to let this interview go to an end without talking about Bruce Springsteen.
Ah,
It's
yeah.
very important because you and I share a passion for Bruce Springsteen. And here in Atlanta, I find where there's lots of people who may like Bruce Springsteen, it's not the same. There's not a real passion for him like there is perhaps in New Jersey, for instance. And I
Right.
really want to talk Springsteen with you because I
All
don't,
right, let's do
nobody
it.
wants to talk about it
No,
with me.
no, yeah.
So
I will.
you've
Yeah,
been
this is how the interview turns into an 8 hour interview, right?
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Let's go. Um, let's talk about his first song. No, now, so for it, I mean, I'll just get out of the way and say that for me, for a 15-year period of my life, he was the most important thing in it. I needed him.
Mm,
I'm past that now. I still love him, but it was really vital to me. And I've only seen him twice. I don't go following him around. I don't like large concerts generally, so I
right.
haven't seen him much. But you've seen him 20 times, you say.
Yeah.
First of
Mhm.
all, what do you like about him?
So I think so here's how I got introduced to Bruce. When I was in ninth grade, I was working for a friend of my mom's and just doing over the summer, doing odd and end jobs. So this is 1984 or 85. It was the Born in the USA time frame. But
Right.
so she was a huge Bruce fan. So every day, and we were just doing like we sanded her floors, painted her fence. I was like, she was my Mr. Miyagi, right? That we were doing all those things that Daniel-san did. And so so she would every day, and this was on the record player, she would put Bruce on the record player. And the first song she played was from she put on Born to Run album, and Thunder Road came on. And I was like,
Wow.
and I at the time I liked, Born in the USA was so huge at that time, number one and so many great songs, and I liked it. But I heard that and I'm like, oh my God. I said, that's Bruce Springsteen. And then so she like brought me all the way back to Greetings from Asbury Park, which is his first album. We just started listening to all like everything pre, Born in the USA. And I just fell in love with them. And I think at that time it was like his writing just like I can listen to him, and you listen to every song and I picture myself or an experience in his music. I just think the way he writes and how he talks about different things like really resonated with me. And then at the end of that summer, she got me a ticket. She's like, I got 2 tickets to see Bruce in Giant Stadium. And and what was funny, her husband at the time, she got the tickets for me and her. He called me, like I was at home, and he called me. He's like, "Hey, I know you have this ticket. I'll give you $100 if you let me go to the show." And something inside me was like, "No." And I called Leslie, was her name. I called her and I was like, what do I do? Like, this is a little awkward for me. She's like, no, I got it for you. If you want to go, you can. So I was like, you know what, I'm going. And it was probably the best decision of my life because like seeing him on stage and later, later in life, I became a performer. And I think I still perform today. I think we all perform. Like the passion and dedication that he has on stage. And, now so back then, so in the 80s, what are we, 40 years? So he was in his 30s at that time. Now he's in his 70s. He still has that same level of connection with the audience and passion. And there's something about that passion of his music. Like, so he's playing Thunder Road for, since 1975, right? Going on 50 years. And he sings that song with the same level of passion that he did probably in 1975.
Yeah.
So there's something about him that how he performs, and I don't know him personally. I did get to meet him once, but I talked to him for like 2 seconds and he didn't say anything. So he, I don't know, that really struck me. And why I keep going back is, and it's, you hear the same songs over and over. It's just how he interacts with his band, how tight they are, and how good they sound together, and then how he interacts with the audience. It's not a person singing a song. It's a movement. And he says this inside, like it's a rock and roll, movement. It's like being in a church with him.
Yeah. And yet he learned the hard way a very powerful lesson, which he actually recovered from, which is that his band was a vital part of him being able to do what he did. After Tunnel of Love, he ditched his band.
Yep.
And, the result was just a guy called Bruce Springsteen who wrote some pretty good songs. But the magic and the power was missing to some extent. And he would be the first to say that
Yep.
because he brought the band back 20 years later.
Yep.
And, it's astounding to see, there's Bruce Springsteen, and then there's the experience called Bruce Springsteen, which is a result of everything else.
Right. Yeah. And he has it's his songs. He writes them. Obviously, he collaborates with other people.
Right.
But yeah, when you put all of that together, and his latest album, Letter to You, the band, it was a live recorded album, and prior, there were other albums though that weren't that way. It was him
Right.
doing the parts, or a couple of people, or had other musicians. And when he gets with that band and that whole experience, again, that's back to teamwork, right? I mean, yes, he's great, but with that team, they're unstoppable.
Yeah, because there's tons of great out there. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone I talk to on this show is great,
Yeah.
but they don't all end up becoming a Bruce Springsteen.
Right. Yeah.
There's an interesting, that last album. This is where everybody's going to tune out, right? Because we're going to talk about a song. I can't help it. I got you here. There's this song, 1,000 Guitars, on that last album. I'm astounded by that song. I don't actually like the song very much as a song, but there's an amazing moment at the very end of the song where his voice sort of almost gives out. And that moved me very much. It's like he allowed the tape to continue running until the vulnerability of the moment. That song apparently means a lot to him. And he didn't end the tape until that was conveyed at the very end. That impressed me.
Well, I didn't pick up on that. Yeah, and obviously your ear is better to even to pick up on those nuances. But I think that's another reason why, like, he's not doing that. I'll say, I'm not sure about artists today, but artists in Bruce's event, and I heard him on an interview, like, what would you do if the music thing didn't work out? He's like, what are you talking about? Like, it was going to work out. This is all I know. Like, I was going to be doing it whether I made money or didn't make money. Right. I mean, I think he was going to be fine living in a surf shop for the rest of his life if, he made a couple $100 a week. That's what he did. And he does it for the love of music. And that's why I did, the Letter to You album I enjoyed. And Ghosts that's one of my favorite songs off that. And, it's about talking about all the people that he interacted with and how they influenced him throughout the years. And yeah, so he gets that. He does understand that it's not just him, right? He doesn't have, I'm sure he has an ego, but like when it comes to this stuff, I don't think, he, at least at this age, recognizes you can't do it alone. And there were a lot of people that got him to where he is. Right.
Not only did he try to go it alone, but he was kind of famous for a little while for telling the audience to shut up while he was in his 40s doing that kind of solo concert.
Yeah.
He was like, well, okay, I'm Bruce Springsteen. I'm writing these songs. I'm singing to you. You need to listen to me. And that did not work for Bruce Springsteen. It actually didn't work.
Right. Yeah. And I know for sure the Ghost of Tom Joad tour, when he was out there doing the acoustic. Yeah. He was like, shh, calm down. And
actually,
everybody,
I think he even told people to shut up.
Shut up. Yeah. Yeah. But it was like, for us as audience members, it's like, what do you mean? We're here to rock. Let's go, let's scream and have a good time. But that, that is a piece, another reason why I like Bruce. I like all his albums, I could rank his albums, but there's at least a song on every album that I love. And I like all his music. I like when he played with different bands. I like the acoustic stuff. And I like that he tries different things. And I think for him, especially, he was ready when he did, start to play without the E Street Band. It was like, he had this feeling of, I need to do something different. Let me try it. And to your point, I think he realized, all right, the magic really happens with this band. Let me get it back together. But I enjoyed that he, some people are like, oh, he's got to sing like Born to Run,
Hmm.
like that's Bruce Springsteen. And I'm like, no, I've enjoyed kind of the multitude of, I don't know if it's genres or just, styles that he's played with over the years.
Yeah.
But going to a concert, I love, you know, the hard rock, fist pumping kind of music. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to fault him for doing the Tom Joad at all,
Yeah.
or even abandoning the band. In fact, I admire the fact that he tried different things, and not only did he try them, but when they didn't work, he went in a different direction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we all have to do, right? I mean, I think we all have to be comfortable with, and that's what, at the beginning we talked about my failures, right? Then you have to be comfortable failing, and be okay with that and figure out, get the lesson from it. We fail all the time, right? And I used to talk about like kids wouldn't be walking if they stopped when they failed. Like,
Right.
how many times did little babies fall trying to learn how to walk? Constantly, right? If they fell and were like, oh shit, I suck at walking, we would all be, getting pushed around. We'd be 50-year-old people that didn't know how to walk.
Yeah. Well, um, I feel like this is a strange thing to do, but I'd like to tell you about my favorite Bruce song.
All
And
right.
maybe it will spur something in you that you might find interesting. And my
Okay.
favorite Bruce song is surprisingly "Stolen Car."
Mm,
Now,
really?
Born to Run is my favorite album. I can't live without it. I like it
Right.
so much. I only listen to
Yeah.
it once every 5 years because I don't
Right.
want to wear it out. But one day I was listening to Stolen Car, and it was the longer version on tracks. And I kept listening to it, and I started to cry. I couldn't, because I suddenly realized that Stolen Car, which is supposedly about a guy who just has a failed relationship and he's just driving, he steals cars but hasn't been caught. It was
Right.
really more about imposter syndrome. Like I was like thinking, oh my God, I'm living this life right now and I'm just getting away with it. I'm getting away with the life I'm living, and I want them to catch me so I don't have to feel like I'm a liar anymore. I
Right.
that was like,
Yeah.
for a song to be able to exist at both levels at once, and yet probably a lot of people never picked up on that, but it didn't matter. But I did. That astounded me.
No, that's fabulous. That's great. And I think what I love about Bruce's music, which might be different than maybe some of Bob Dylan's, who obviously inspired Bruce to do a lot of what he does as a songwriter, at least. And I think Bruce has said this, like he writes music that lives on, right? Like it's not, he doesn't have a song that just talks about like this is what life was in the 70s. Yes, he is writing in the time, like based on current events and things that are happening, but the way he writes them is that it'll make sense 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Right.
Like,
Rosalita, for instance. It's got
yeah,
that ebullient that is just, it's timeless.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's about people, in that song, it's like, hey, when you're being looked at, like in this case, his girlfriend, Rosalita, his parents think he's a bum, doesn't have a job, I mean, so you can look at that in anything, right? I mean, any relationship that anybody has that you're being looked at different than who you are. And it's like, screw them, don't believe them, trust in me, we got this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anybody at any age goes through that at some point in their life or could go through it. Yeah.
Okay. I told you my favorite song. Now it's your turn. What's your favorite? I think,
So
I think
so
I
this
know.
goes
But
back to my, so I'm going to go to a fairly obscure one, but it
okay.
goes back to my memory. I was sitting here, I knew you were going to ask me, and I'm like, this is how bad my memory is. Like I'm like, I can't remember the exact title of the song. um So it's off of the river. Well, oh yeah, so Wreck on the Highway. So there's
Uh,
two. There's like the river is I love when I have the words in front of me to try. And actually, you helped me like play that song and
that's right.
sing that song.
We had a
But
lesson
Wreck
on
on
it.
the Highway is one about a guy, you know, that comes upon a car that was turned over, and this guy had a wreck on the highway, literally in this case, and then he starts thinking about all the people connected to that person and what are they thinking. Um, and I think there's even a line in the song is like the cops go to that person's, I don't know if it's the wife or it could be their family, and have to explain that, your loved one passed. And there's just something about like how he writes that and the pace of the song, um, that talks about relationships and how we feel about each other and the timelessness of that anything. So I viewed it like anything can happen at any moment. So you have to live for today and be okay with that, right? And he at the end, he's like he's sitting up watching his wife as she's sleeping and thinking about this guy that had the wreck on the highway, and how he might, and I don't know, he doesn't really go into it, but I'm thinking like, yeah, how might he interact with his partner now, his spouse, and do things differently because of that moment. So
And even if it isn't a question of doing things differently, it's just that
yeah,
vulnerability of the awareness,
right.
the fragility of our
Our
relationships and
lives.
our
Yeah,
lives.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, how do we bring this back? Tell me how Springsteen exemplifies some of the things we've been talking about in the interview.
Yeah, so I think, one of the, and I said it earlier, and what I always liked about him, how he includes, like, it's not, other than, he had that period of it, shut up, listen to me, watch me. Um, so he has a way of like drawing people in and going along with them. Like, so you've been to, would you say, two
Two,
concerts?
yeah.
So just like even like on stage, he's always figuring out one, how to play certain songs to get people to pump their fist at a certain time, sing at a certain time, like, and have everybody kind of working in unison. Um, now I think it's Hungry Heart. There, so off of it was like the 1975 to 85 live album.
Yeah.
There's a great version of Hungry Heart where I think they start playing the beginning of the song, and the audience sings the first
Yes.
verse.
That
Yeah.
is so cool.
So that to me, like, I love that version of that live version of that song, because that epitomizes everything I was taught. Like, in a moment, everybody, and he was probably playing at a stadium like Giant Stadium at the time, like Wembley or some huge, 80, 100,000 people. They're all singing in unison,
At the beginning of the song, they start the song. The
right, right.
audience starts the song.
Right. Yeah. So for that and he makes that happen, right?
Right.
And that's what he does with his band, and how they feel like it's just so natural. Even though I will say at the beginning of this tour, I saw the current tour that's going on, I saw the second show and then the fourth show. And then I went to see him in Columbus, and there was an illness, so I
Right.
missed. Yeah, he postponed that show, so I didn't get to see him the third time. But there was like, the band was fumbling. They were trying to. I mean, they rehearsed and got ready, but you could tell like they were a little rusty. But for the most part, the way as a band leader, and how the band works together, and how the band and him work with the audience, it feels like everybody's connected. And you use the word like meshing together. Everybody knows what's going to happen and feeds off each other, and it's, he feeds off the crowd feeds off of him, and it's like one big happy team at a concert, and I love that.
Yeah, and he's always trying to show off his band and make them look as good as they can look.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I could do this all day.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome. This is like back to the beginning. This to me is what I consider awesome, right? How we interacted, the conversations we had, and everybody should have conversations like this. I think, yeah, it might be cliche, but I do think we need to be better to each other as humans. And I see too much, and I won't call it bullying, but just people, being harsher than they need to be, right? And if we're good to each other, then we'll be more apt to, want to work with each other, and then we'll reach the goals that we're trying to get to, in no matter what the situation is.
Well, Coop, how can people find you?
Yeah, I think the best way is LinkedIn. is perfect. You can just put in Kupersmith. So business wise, that's where I hang out. And I think Facebook is the other area. So look me up there, and there's more personal stuff happening out there.
Good. Did you list your website?
Oh yeah, you can go to cooptalks.com.
Great. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Coop. We appreciate you having a word with us today.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Thank you. And thank you to audience for hanging in there with us and listening to the Bruce Springsteen conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. We really love to present these talks to you, and we hope you're enjoying them. Let us know that you like them. Push that like button. Leave us some comments. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't, and also who you'd like us to talk to next. Thanks very much, folks. We'll see you next time.